Even in a relationship or a marriage, there is a real possibility that you could end up being a single parent, a single mother, and that's crazy to most people who are child free, especially women, don't want to be parents because that they'll have to bear the responsibility of child rearing. From a really, really young age, women or girls are given dolls to learn how to change their nappies and bottle feed and such. We're indoctrinated into being parents from a really, really young age. And that responsibility of parenthood, of motherhood, is then dragged on up until we're old enough to make a decision. And then when we make that decision, it's kind of like, oh, you're selfish. But in that little funnel that we're all put in, we're taught that, yeah, you can play with dolls, you can play with this, you can change nappies, feed them, give them food, change, bottle feed them, whatever it is, right? And then we're taught to go to school and we're taught to get a good job and get married. And then once you do that, probably have children and then quit your job and just fill your house with babies. But it's the women that have to do all of that. They're the ones who have to give up their careers. We're the ones who have to, give up a lot of our identity to become parents. And that's why some of us just don't want to do that. But even when you do follow those steps and you get into a relationship, you get into a marriage, and you decide to both have children, who is it that is responsible for the early feeds, especially early on when the child is still kind of fresh from the hospital? Majority of the time, when a woman can breastfeed, they're the ones who have to get up and breastfeed, regardless. Like, there's no choice in that. So it's still on the woman, right? Biologically, it's on the woman. And of course, there's great dads out there. There are great fathers. I have one of those. But I also know that there's also those parents, those fathers, those dads who are just there for the vibes, who are just there for the bands. And the woman is the one who has to raise that child. You can't predict that. A lot of the time, you can't really know your husband or your future baby father until you have a baby. That is the biggest risk that I'm just not willing to take. There are a lot of women out there who had the best relationships, had the best marriages, and as soon as a baby came along, all of a sudden the husband switch up. All of a sudden the boyfriends or their partners switch up. All of a sudden this great relationship that they had is now crumbling because there's a baby in the mix, and all of a sudden they're not the center of their world. It's, that attention is shifted to the baby. And in that, a lot of the time, most men will check out. They'll still be in that relationship, they'll still be in that marriage, but they will check out. And therefore, the woman still has to make sure that they keep this little human alive, even though they have a partner, even though they've got a husband who apparently cherishes and loves them and cares for them. But you've got this baby now who basically only has a mother, even though they're in a two-parent household. And that's best case scenario. Of course, you have the single parents who, have to raise